Hey, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. I thought I'd have a bit of a chat about the Olympics, seeing that's in the news at the moment. I know people are pretty interested in that sort of stuff, but in a bit of a twist, I thought I'd have a look at the Olympics, but from a property perspective, and see if there's anything we can learn about the Olympics, or learn about property by looking at the Olympics and what people do as far as the Olympics goes. So I was actually having a chat to someone that gave me a call today, and they were ringing me up with my real estate agent hat on, saying, "Hey, I'm looking at buying this property. It's a development site. I just want to have an idea of, if I buy this and subdivide, can I sell the land off?" And I suppose the thing from my perspective, because I'm just not a real estate agent, I do lots of other things as well. From my perspective, I'm like, well, yeah, you can sell the land off. It depends on what the land is and how much you're going to sell it for, and whether someone wants to buy it. But you're always going to be able to sell anything. Hey, Karen, thanks for joining. So I said, well, I started asking lots of questions, and I suppose he was a bit taken aback by, he's like, why are you asking me so many questions? I just want to know whether I can sell this land when I subdivide. And I suppose the problem for him is that, if he just rings around a whole pile of real estate agents and asks them whether he can sell his block of land, the answer is going to be yes, because that's what real estate agents do. They sell things, and basically the whole strategy as far as a real estate agent goes is you put it on the internet and you hope someone buys it, and if they don't, you drop the price until it sells. The problem from a perspective as a property developer, if that's your strategy and you just keep dropping the price until it sells, eventually you will sell it. But the problem is, obviously, time costs you money, so you're going to pay interest while you're hanging on to wait for the development site to happen. And then secondly, as the prices go down, as you're selling it for less and less, your profit's going down too, until eventually you get desperate, you have to sell it in a hurry, then you're making a loss. And particularly when you're just starting out, that loss can be catastrophic. So I was just sort of asking him all these questions, and then I sort of explained a little bit how I chat to people and try and give them some information just so they can make an informed decision. Because I was trying to explain to him, when you do a subdivision, it's not about whether you can subdivide, it's whether you should subdivide. And I suppose that's my concern for him, that he spent a lot of time. I could tell he was putting in the research up front. He just didn't randomly go out and buy a property. He was ringing up everyone he could find, basically. Every real estate agent he could find, every surveyor he could find, and conveyancers, and all of his friends, I'm sure he's asking, trying to get expert advice. The problem he was getting all this advice from different areas and different places, but the problem is they're all looking at it in little discrete packages. So obviously the surveyor purely focused on whether I can subdivide, and that's great. That is something that's really important to see, but it's not necessarily the most important thing. And likewise, he talked to his mortgage broker. His mortgage broker is focused on, okay, can I get the finance to do the subdivision? And he talks to a real estate agent, and he asks the real estate agent, can I sell this block of land? And the answers to all these questions might be yes. The problem is, without looking at it holistically, I suppose, looking at it overall, you've got to put all the pieces in the puzzle together to look at it as a big picture. And when you can see it as a big picture, then you can start to see, okay, if this deal is going to be profitable, and that's probably the most important thing. And unfortunately, this has just comes down to lack of experience. He was trying to he was looking at every piece in the puzzle, trying to say, okay, let's look at this piece, look at this piece, look at this piece. And he was looking at them all individually, and he couldn't because he didn't have experience, the knowledge of seeing the deal as a complete project, then he had no way of then saying, okay, but is the deal going to be profitable? And so this is where experience comes in, basically. The more experience you have, the more you can actually see the big picture. And unfortunately, the problem with experience is you've got to do it lots of times to get experience. Just doing one deal or doing one piece of, hey, Asley, thanks for joining, one piece of research is not enough. And unfortunately, the problem is the more times you do something, the more experience you get. But at the start, at the end of the day, you've got to take a bit of a punt. And I suppose from his perspective, because he was just starting out, the danger was, if he made this mistake from his first deal, he might never do it again, because he might be too scared to do it again, and or he might have run out of cash, and that's it. He might not have the opportunity to do it again. So this is where experience comes in. The reason I'm referring this back to the Olympics, I was actually reading up about James Magnussen, and I don't know if you know about him, but in the last Olympics, he went into the Olympics as a world champion, and he went, because he'd had so much experience in the past, obviously as a swimmer, and then he came in as a world champion. He's like, okay, I've got all this experience, I know exactly what to do, and he really took the Olympics as just any other game, any other competition, and so he didn't go in there with a preparation that he otherwise might have, and he went in there without the experience of understanding of of seeing it in the big picture and trying to see that it's not the same. Every deal is not the same. In his situation, every event is not the same, and you have to look at it with a different perspective and undertake each event as its own unique project, I suppose. And from my perspective, when I'm looking at a property development deal, each deal is different. You learn different things from each deal. The benefit you get is after more and more developments, you start to learn more and more things, and you make less and less mistakes. You will mistakes. Every development you do, you're going to make mistakes, and you just have to learn from those. But eventually, you're going to make so many mistakes that you're just going to run out of things to learn, and eventually you're going to start making less mistakes. And the good thing about that, when you become more experienced, then the more experience you have, the more risk you can take, and the less risky things become. So the risks I take as an experienced investor, might seem relatively relatively risky compared to a novice investor, but for me they're not so risky because I've had the experience of doing, be involved in hundreds of developments. I've been involved in thousands of property transactions, and you just get to see, what's going to happen before it happens. Essentially, it's sort of like you can predict the future, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And so the good thing is, I was having a chat to this guy, and I suppose from his perspective, he just didn't understand. He was looking at all the individual pieces of the puzzle, and he just didn't see where he could possibly go wrong. And the reason that is, he just didn't know what he didn't know. And so that's the problem. You're looking at all the pieces of the puzzle, what you think are all the pieces of the puzzle, but maybe you're only looking at half the pieces, and you're like, okay, cool, I've covered all the pieces of the puzzle, I've looked at everything I need to know, I'm ready to go, the development looks like it's going to be great development. The problem is there's a whole pile of other pieces to this puzzle that it's not going to allow him to be able to see the big picture. And so hopefully this makes sense to everyone. I know it's a little bit esoteric, but this is where experience comes in, really. And the difficulty I had trying to explain to him, I was having a chat to him on the phone, just trying to point out some of the things he needed to think about, which he didn't even know about. He was like, but I don't really understand, what benefit you, or what knowledge or experience you have relative to me, because I've gone off and done all the research. I've talked to all the people I need to talk to, but I was trying to explain to him, but you haven't actually done it, and until you've actually done it, you won't learn, really. And so, and again, you're going to make mistakes regardless, and I could, I had a bit of a look at his property from Google Earth, and straight away I could see a lot of the mistakes he was going to make without even seeing the property, without even knowing too much detail about it. I could see all the mistakes he was going to make up front, and I knew that it was going to be, 50-50 whether it was going to be profitable for him. But unfortunately, he's going to have to go and learn by trial and error, unless he engages someone to leverage off of their experience. At the end of the day, if you don't have the experience, the only way you can learn is by creating the experience yourself, and that by making mistakes. So unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for the world of property development, mistakes can be really, really expensive, and sometimes you can't learn from those because it just the setback's too great. So hopefully that's made sense to everybody, and maybe if you're looking at some of these guys that are in the Olympics, hopefully you'll maybe have a bit of a different look at it from a property investor's viewpoint, understanding how important experience is. And again, that's why you'll see some of these athletes maybe go worse or better than what you expected, because the agents have a lot more, the athletes that have a lot more experience are probably going to go a lot better than the ones that are new to this whole thing, because the whole situation is unknown to them, and they just have to get out there and give it a go and make their own mistakes and learn by trial and error. So hopefully that's made sense to everybody. I look forward to talking to you again soon. If you've liked what I had to say, then click on the like button. If you haven't liked it, then still click on the like button, because I really appreciate it. And if you have something you'd like to say, or you found it interesting, then click on the comment button. I'm happy to have a chat about anything you'd like to talk about in the future. And if you know someone that's thinking about doing a development, then maybe click on the share button, because hopefully they'd find this useful to maybe just take a step back and look at their development from a different perspective. So thanks, guys. I look forward to talking again soon. Bye.